Understanding Meister Eckhart by Volker Schunck. Preface to Meister Eckhart. The texts of Meister Eckhart are difficult to understand. What are the difficulties? Certainly they consist in the fact that the way of thinking in the Middle Ages is different from ours, in a time in which it is for the people even questionable if a soul or God exists. Texts are difficult to read in which naturally it is talked about soul, ground of the soul, essence of the soul, and God. Nevertheless, even in the last years, Meister Eckhart became increasingly popular, especially by these people who are interested in Zen Buddhism and mysticism. Meister Eckhart establishes ties between a Trinitarian God who has revealed himself in Jesus Christ, and a God who is nameless and who has more similarity with a nude abstract being, which Meister Eckhart calls divinity, Gottheit or Übergott. But that already said too much thought in terms and definitions. And these are the actual difficulties to understand the text of Meister Eckhart. Similar difficulties you also have when you, for example, read texts by Nisargadatta Maharaj, a modern mystic influenced by Vedanta Yoga. The texts describe rather a spiritual and mystical experience, which you have to live and not to read to understand them. A verse-to-verse interpretation is little helpful. One has to be similar to the being of the author. An intellectual understanding may be a first step, but not more. And here the question comes up who the addressees of the sermons were. Believe it or not, Meister Eckhart preached to the simple people of the folk. The only condition to understand is this one. I point out that my talking and work are only dedicated to good and wholehearted people, in which first of all a dignified life and the noble teaching of our Lord Jesus Christ is alive. That is important. Everything what Meister Eckhart says about God's birth into the soul of the human is indeed addressed to all humans, but does not fulfill automatically in all humans as a salvation automatism. The sense organs, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin, are the instruments which whom the soul absorbs images, sounds, etc. into the soul. The soul is in the whole human, from top to toe, in every fiber. The inner world of the human consists of the soul and its soul ground. The soul ground is the essence of the soul. The energies arise in the ground of the soul and flow into the soul. With them the soul does her work, perceiving the outer world with the sense organs, thinking, acting. Only God has access to the ground of the soul, to the essence of the soul. He becomes one with the pious human and works in silence without any image. His work is it to give birth to his son into the ground of the soul. That means to become one with the pious human. This happens like in eternity. That means always. The soul does not work her work in the ground of the soul. She even has no instruments, sense organs for it. The only instrument in the ground of the soul is silence. Through the silence, the human becomes receptive for God. For this, the energies of the soul are needed, which arise here in the ground. But these energies are becoming consumed by the sensations when the human absorbs the outer world into the soul. They are missing in the ground of the soul to absorb God. In the ground of the soul are no images at all. Meister Eckhart explained. Eckhart differentiates between the outer and the inner world of the human. The soul is in the whole human from top to toe. in every fiber. The soul has a ground, the ground of the soul, which Eckhart also calls essence of the soul. In this ground energies arise which flow out into the soul. The soul needs these energies to work her work. That consists of perceiving the outer world. How does she do that? For it she needs different instruments. That are the sense organs: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin. But to this also belongs the brain with its thinking and wanting. With the sense organs she absorbs the sensations into the soul. But she absorbs the sensations only into the soul, not into the ground of the soul. Nevertheless, the sensations bind and consume the energies which are missing in the ground of the soul. However, the ground of the soul is empty of any sensation. In the ground is no work of the soul. The ground doesn't have instruments for it. We remember, the instruments to perceive the outer world are the sense organs. There is only one instrument in the ground of the soul, and that is silence. It serves the purpose to recognize God. God becomes into the ground of the soul with his whole and not with his part. Here God gives birth to his Son, like in eternity. That means always. That happens without any instruments and images. God becomes one with the ground of the soul and changes from there the whole human. But for this, silence is necessary and the collection of the energies into the ground, which otherwise waste themselves to the images which were absorbed of the outer world into the soul.